Okay, today I want to tie a Sturdy's Fancy. This is a beautiful little fly. It's a greyling fly, and it was invented by a keeper up on a Yorkshire river called the River Ure. I think it's pronounced Ure. It's spelt three letters U-R-E. It's a very pretty fly. It does work well as a dry fly for greyling on our rivers, particularly the Awenny. You can tie it with a white hackle, as this one is, or with a creamy badger hackle. This particular one is white. I use them both, and I've got a badger cape to hand today, so I will tie this with a badger hackle. Okay, the hook is an up-eye. Doesn't matter too much about that, but it's a Camasan. It's a B440, size 14. I tie this in a 14 or a 16, so it doesn't matter. Okay, I've already waxed the silk, so I will make my 3 winds forward, 1, 2, 3, then 3 back to secure the silk, and take it down towards the bend of the hook, down to about there. Ready to tie in the tail. Some people call it a tag, some people call it a tail. It's red floss. I've got 3 strands of it here, and you can actually use a red wool, which quite honestly the original tie-in calls for, because it's quite an old fly, and there was no floss around in the days when this was tied. I'll just remove some of this waste. It'll make things a bit easier for when we tie in. You can always, if you want to, I'll just do this, draw it back a little bit if you want to. Okay, you will notice when you tie in almost any tail that as you wind the wraps, the tail tends to get pushed over. It's not a bad idea to keep tension towards you on the material, and that'll counterbalance the tendency for it to go over. Just trim a couple of these spiky bits here. It won't matter too much because they're going to be covered by the body. The next item is the rib. Again, on the original fly, the pattern didn't show a rib. But we've moved on, and this is a holographic rib. As you know, it comes in various colours. I like to use the pink holographic on this fly. It's a greyling fly, and greyling, it's well known, greyling like pink. The boys in the club will tell you that a pink nymph is very good for greyling, and I think it's better with a rib than without. The rib, as you know, will add a little bit of protection to anybody, but it also gives segmentation, which natural flies have. So I've just tied in that rib there. Now this long red tail I'll be trimming shortly. It'll be coming back to something like this. I won't be bothering with that for the moment. Right, the next item to put in is the body. And this is a normal peacock herl. Can you see? This is makes a lovely body. See the flue on it when I draw my fingers down like this? This makes a bushy body. One thing to tell you about peacock, it's always a bit brittle towards these tapered ends, so I tend to pull them off and line them up a bit and start to tie them in. Just give them a little trim because they didn't break at the same length. So I'll tie in the peacock herl body. It just goes on like so. I'll wind everything down now and tidy it up and make sure that things are looking okay. Here's one stray strand there of floss. It don't matter much, but I'll nip it off. Everything is tied down there now, nice and firm. What I'm going to do now is just run some varnish down the body, down the underbody, before I wind on the body. This will help it to stick. Again, it'll protect it. I don't put too much of this, just a touch like that with my Sally Hansen's. Dry fly fishing for grayling is very popular in the north, in Yorkshire on those rivers there. And another famous fly, very similar to this one, is called a treacle parkin. It's a very similar fly, similar tie-ins, peacock herl body, but it has a yellow tag, yellow tail, and a brown hackle at the front. Okay, that's all we need there. So I'll secure this and tie it off. Just secure it with 1 or 2 turns, like this, and nip off the surplus. Enough there to tie another fly. Okay, now I'm going to wind this rib, this attractive holographic pink rib. You noticed I wound the body over. With most ribs you counter wind, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take the ribs under. It's a small fly, we'll probably only get about 4 ribs on. I don't want them too close. You get a natural feeling for the proportion of the ribbing. Don't want them too close and you don't want them too far apart. That'll do it nicely. I'm going to tie it down. Just secure it like that. Like the rib gives us protection and the segmentation, as I say. Okay, and it adds to the attractiveness of the fly. Nip that off. And I'll just give a bit of security there. Now while we're at that stage, just to show you, it doesn't matter when you do this, I'll sort out this tail. It's about there. Just like that. There's enough there for another fly or 2, and you can brush it up a little bit. Okay, the next item is a hackle. This is the last item on this fly. You can use, as I say, a badger hackle, a creamy or a white badger hackle. Very, very useful hackle for lots of flies, and very nice hackle. I like it very much. So I'll pull one off. And I'll just trim it up. Ready to tie it in. Clean up the ends like that. Tie it in, shiny side forward as usual. And tie it in up to the body. I like a figure of 8 on it if we can. It's over that way, over this way, again over that way, again over this way, and you can bend the stalk back or forward. In this case I'm going to bring him forward to tie it down, just to secure it with a couple of winds. You probably notice the tie-in silk on this is purple. Nip off the stalk, ready to wind the hackle, and I take my silk up to the eye. Okay, just wind the hackle, winding it tight to the body and forward. See the fly starting to emerge here. That's enough. Draw things back a bit and secure it with 1 or 2 before I tighten it completely. Okay, now I'm going to nip off the hackle. Like that. Now with a dry fly, if you got some of the hackles coming over the eye like this, and you want to push them back a bit, a little tip, there are various ways. On larger flies, I use a pen like this to push them back on the big flies. On small flies, I use various other things. This is a good little tool, it's a cotton bud. I've cut off one end with the scissors, and this will push back the hackles nicely for you to tie the head. And you can put on, doing this, a couple of half hitches. It's just a wind around like this, and if you see it sliding down, push it over, and you take those hackles back like that. Did you see that? Watch this again. Put a couple of these on, go back, and that's keeping those hackles back and exposing the head for me to put on the more secure whip finish. Now I still draw them back, give a couple of winds like that, and I'll put on my whip finish, my usual whip finish, which is secure. I form a loop, cross it over like that, concentrating on this top one, and I wind around 3 times, 3 or 4, 3 on a small fly like this will do the job okay. And I use my dubbing needle in the loop, and I draw it up, and I remove it. You can dip the dubbing needle in the varnish first if you want to, but we're going to varnish the head. Now there's a whip finish on there and a couple of half hitches, and I've cut the silk. That finishes the fly. I'm just going to varnish the head. You can brush out the tail if you want to. Now I will say, I did say earlier that you can use wool for the tail. I buy wool like this. You can tie millions of flies, and wool is just as good for the tail as floss. You have to brush it out a bit with a little bit of Velcro like this. I've got a bit of Velcro on a stick here somewhere. I can't find it for a moment, so it's in amongst my tools. A bit of Velcro on a stick that you just brush it up and it comes out. I've been moving my tools around, so I'm not quite sure where it is. Anyway, that's the point. Okay, we're going to varnish. It doesn't matter which varnish we use, Sally Hansen's or the low flash varnish. We just dip the point of the needle in and touch the silk head like this, and it goes on. Just like that. Sounding a bit like Tommy Cooper here. I can see my little Velcro stick. Little bit of Velcro stuck on a cloth, and you would just brush it all out like this to give it a tail of red wool. As good as the floss, but I'm just trying to stick to the original pattern. Now, last item, always remember, clear the eye. Up through with the stalk and pull it through. And that's our Sturdy's Fancy. A lovely little fly, lovely for grayling. It will take trout, but it's primarily a grayling fly. I'm sure you'll have success with it. Not too difficult to tie. Okay, thank you for watching that.